Welcome into the best damn college football show out there with Robbie Veno, Ralph Michaels. I am Drew Martin, WagerTalk.com, SportsMemo.com. We got FBS Division I college football kicking off this week. We're breaking down the 5 games on the card on this video, guys, so should be a good one here. Lots of betting action to go over. Ralph Michaels at CalSportsLV on Twitter from WagerTalk.com. Welcome in, buddy.
Hey, guys, I was talking to Johnny on a sales call yesterday, and, when we said, what's the only good thing that's happened because of COVID? Well, it's probably we have a historic September 2020. We have NHL playoffs. We have NBA playoffs. We have WNBA. We have baseball. We have college football. We have NFL. We have the Kentucky Derby. We have U.S. Open for tennis. So because there's a historic month, WagerTalk's making a historic deal for all our viewers. 30-day all access, all sports, every sport that your favorite handicapper caps, $199, no coupon needed. Normal price was $349. We knocked off $150. An incredible way to celebrate September, $199 all access.
Guys, check that out at sportsmemo.com and wagertalk.com. Robbie Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Welcome in, man. It's game week.
Happy Tuesday, Drew. Man, we've been waiting a long time for this, haven't we? I went back and, Drew, we started this show in March, this Tuesday, 1 o'clock deal. So it was a long time coming, and thank goodness. Saturday was only an FCS. It was an FCS top 15 matchup. The Central Arkansas game against Austin Peay. But boy, it felt like Christmas Day to have that game on TV at 9 o'clock at night. So look forward to Thursday, Saturday, Monday, and then the following week. We should get into this thing full gear now. I see real quick, guys, that game was played Saturday night, and I read this morning that 3 days later, Central Arkansas reported no cases of coronavirus. So that's good news to play a full game and have your entire roster come up negative. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
For sure, Robbie. And we're talking the first game up here on Thursday night to kick off the show here, guys. We got Thursday night action, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on CBS Sports Network, Robbie. South Alabama versus Southern Miss. We got 53.5 being the total with the Southern Miss Golden Eagles minus 15.5. I believe this game is in Hattiesburg. So we got Sunbelt Conference USA kicking it off, Robbie. 2 teams that I know you know very well. What are you thinking this upcoming year? 53.5 being the total, 15 in the hook. Southern Miss laying at home.
Yeah, thank God we only have 5 games because I've got a little bit to say on this one, so I'll go quick here. But let me start, Drew, with the concerns I have about South Alabama. First up would be the offensive line. Despite the fact that they return 4 starters on that offensive line, they could be without their starting left guard, who missed a good chunk of the summer or fall practice sessions, however you want to categorize that. And they have a brand new starting left tackle in Wyatt Green against a team that got to the quarterback 40 times last year. So, when your blindside protection is brand new and you're facing a pretty fierce pass rush, that could be a bit troublesome. South Alabama's depth chart came out yesterday, and it revealed that the 2 backup corners projected at the start of fall practice are now your 2 starting corners. So the starters move back a step. Obviously, the coaches see these guys on the field. They make these decisions for a reason. But I'll point out that the 2 new starting corners for South Alabama just switched to the position at the start of the spring. And one is a converted wide receiver, played 2 years at this university as a wide receiver. So you've got a converted wide receiver, now a starting quarterback. You've got another conversion to corner. Those 2 guys starting here against Southern Miss, which despite the loss of Quez Watkins, who was drafted by the Eagles, still have a lot of speed and a lot of talent at the wide receiver position and quarterback Jack Abraham to throw them the football. So those would be my concerns with South Alabama. But the plus to this side, and we'll have to quantify how big of a plus it is, Ralph. The offensive talent here at South Alabama is as good as Steve Campbell's had during his short tenure. However, saying that might not mean that much, right? Because they've been a miserable offensive team But they want, Kenny Edenfeld, this offensive coordinator, these guys want to go fast. They want to play tempo, and they want to be diverse, and they feel like they've got the group now to do it. Led by Desmond Trotter. I'll give you 2 quick numbers to tell you about the impact of Desmond Trotter last year on this team. First 8 games, and we'll use this current total, guys, of 53. That's, I think, almost universal here, maybe 53 and a half. First 8 games of the season last year, South Alabama, they don't go over 53 but one time. Most of that due to their lousy offense. In steps Trotter, who quarterbacks the final 4 games of the year, and they go over 53 points 3 out of those 4 games. They were much better offensively. All the numbers across the board got better with him. He's a dual threat quarterback. He put up good passing numbers. The team leaned heavily on the run last year, 64.5% running plays to only 35.5% passing plays, but that's bound to change here a little bit. Good wide receiving core, good quarterback that they trust. The offense could be a bit of a spark plug here for this team. For USM, Southern Miss, the team speed, I think, is a huge advantage for them. I talked about the defensive pressure. We'll see if that comes to fruition. Jack Abraham, and let's just note here real quick that Jack Abraham takes a lot of heat for what happened last year, almost as if he didn't play well. But if you go over the schedule, guys, they played Mississippi State. They played Alabama. They played UAB in conference, who had a tremendous defense. They played Tulane, who stepped up with a better defense. And from the other side of the division, they drew the 2 best defensive teams, Western Kentucky and Florida Atlantic. So I think Jack Abraham's here to probably have a big year this year with his wide receiving core. If I have, we're talking on Tuesday here, my lean would be towards over. I think that early money that came on over was correct. But we'll look into it a little deeper the next 24 hours and then make a play on this game.
Ralph, what are you thinking here? USA versus Southern Miss.
I like the dog. There are some concerns. Every team's going to have COVID concerns. And, one thing, we talked about the 30-day all access. I don't know about you, Drew, or Rob, but I can imagine my plays being much later this week when I normally release them. Sometimes I release some plays on Monday and Tuesday. I think the all access is going to benefit people because, you're not having to worry about when those plays are released. You're not missing anything. If I get some late COVID information, a game that was a lean for me might turn into a play late Friday night, and you're going to get that emailed. So there's so much to pay attention to. Now, Rob brought up some South Alabama guys. Southern Miss had 5 guys opt out, 2 on the defensive line. They only returned. They were a powerful rush team, Rob. You gave the numbers on their sacks last year, but 2 of their top 3 sack guys, Turner, who had 6 sacks, and Booth, who had 3.5, both opted out. So while South Alabama has some issues with maybe a young left tackle, I think Southern Miss is going to be bereft of any pass rush. You look at South Alabama last year, they have played 3 quarterbacks each of the last 3 years. There's tough to get any continuity with that. But what did they finish down the end? A quarterback who, after not gaining any more than 314 yards last year, his first start he gains 348, second start 467, third start 326, and in his 4th start of the season, they gained 495 yards against Arkansas State. 4 offensive line guys back, a quarterback who's proven to me who can be better. I think this line is off. I think the line includes a full home edge. Southern Miss doesn't get that in my book. I still actually have South Alabama in the possibility as a play for me.
Okay, and yeah, you bring up Southern Miss playing there at home with not the full home field advantage there. Normally, it would be a pretty good home field advantage, especially with the kickoff for college football happening. A primetime game here on Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. South Alabama and Southern Miss kick off Division I football, FBS as we know it now. But now we got the Saturday games, guys. Pretty full slate here. At least throughout the day, we're going to have college football action. Good one to kick off. At least a interesting handicap. We got a option team and a little bit more of a wide open team here, Ralph. 12:30 Eastern kickoff on CBS Sports Network. MTSU, that's Middle Middle Tennessee State University versus Army. We're seeing Army minus 356 being the total here, Ralph.
Well, I'm going to bring this point up with both Army and Navy. There are no COVID sit-outs for the service academies. I mean, those guys are playing, they're praying, they're going to school, they're preparing to defend our country. Again, those guys aren't sitting out. So when you have this academy, you have a situation where they are going to be almost at 100% health. Not saying no one can get COVID, but every other team has had players opt out of COVID. So again, a much different scenario that you got to remember. We are looking at a positive situation there. On Middle Tennessee, let me check my list real quick. They have no major starters that I have as of yesterday that opted out. But here's my take on both academies. Just like on the FCS game, the first play was what? A pitch out for Austin Pay, and the players look disorganized, and he runs for an 80-yard touchdown. How many games have we watched where a team is prepared for an option, and the first and second drives, they just look clueless on defense? You're not practicing against chop blocking, and the option is something that's basic and simple, and they drive right down and score. I think both Navy on Monday and Army in this game have a huge advantage, especially the first quarter and first half. Not only did Middle Tennessee not prep for this team in the spring because there was no spring practices, this team didn't even know they were playing them till 2 weeks ago. So you go from not playing an option team to trying to scheme against your first option team that you've played forever in a period of 2 weeks. That is not going to happen. So simply, I can just tell you in 2 games, they may not be the right side. My power ratings don't say to play the team, but there's only one way I would look, and that's Army and Navy early first half, first quarter plays on both games.
Yeah, Ralph, that's what interested me too, is the Army side here. And Robbie, one other reason why is, with everything going on in the background with all these college kids, COVID, are they playing, are they not? The Armies, the Navies, the Air Forces, which unfortunately doesn't look like we'll be playing at least out the gate. Those type of kids with that mentality handle this, at least in my opinion, a little bit better. Therefore, I'm with Ralph. I kind of have Army circled as the side I want to be on. But what are you thinking here, Robbie?
Well, I'm in agreement with you guys, and I'll tell you one of the reasons why that Ralph didn't list there. Middle Tennessee, their front seven was pretty much decimated. They got 6 brand new guys inside their front seven. Now, as Ralph alluded to, when it comes to defending Wishbone, you have to stick to your assignments, not get out of position. And when you have 6 new guys inside that front seven, I could see blown assignments. The other side to this coin that maybe I'll present when we talk about BYU and Navy is that these teams do have all summer to get ready for it. But with the way things have gone, so choppy practice-wise, I think a team that loses 6 of their front 7 against an option team right out of the chute is not a good proposition. The other side to that coin, Drew, is Asher O'Hara. We remember him, the quarterback for Middle Tennessee, who's dual threat, runs the ball an awful lot. But he's throwing into a very experienced Army back 7. The linebacking core in the secondary return almost intact for this team. So I don't know that it's going to be as easy, even though I think Middle Tennessee will be an improved offensive team. Last year, I was involved in a lot of their totals, guys, and they gain a lot of yards, but don't necessarily put up touchdowns at the end of that yardage. So you get the idea that they're really doing great offensively. Then you look at the score and you're like, wow, I still need 15 points to get over the number in this thing. That's not going to work against Army. Army does have a brand new quarterback here. It's a senior. Kid's name is Christian Anderson. Of course, it seems like, except for the really, really rare occasions, that it's just a plug-and-place position for these academies. A senior, obviously, Anderson's been in the program for a while, so I don't worry about him too much. I think Army's got to be the right side here mainly for the fundamental reasons that I listed there. I think the defensive front from Middle Tennessee will have trouble, and I think that the back 7 of Army will create trouble for the MTSU passing game. So I'd look towards Army.
Good breakdown there, Robbie. And guys, remember, it is $2 Tuesday at Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com. Top play up at both sites discounted to just $2 each and every Tuesday. This is the college football show going Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Let us know if you're liking the content in the chat box. Always like to hear what you guys are thinking out there. Thanks for tuning in. If you're liking the content, please click the thumbs up sign on YouTube, WagerTalk YouTube channel there, guys. Next two games we're going to be breaking down. All the totals in the 50s, except for the next two games here. We got them in the 70s. Next up, 3:30 Eastern kick here on ESPN. SMU at Texas State. Seeing SMU with the highest line on the card, the week 0 card here, 21.5. So over 3 touchdown favorites here, Robbie, with a total of 70. What are you thinking in San Marcos on Saturday?
Well, I think of the two, if you asked me which one I preferred to go over, I would say this contest, SMU and Texas State. A couple of reasons here. Jake Spavital obviously took over a real reconstruction project here in San Marcos. And he's finally got some of the pieces that he would like here. Now, they've changed quarterbacks. Tyler Vitt was a very average quarterback for this team, very average college football player. But now he's beaten out for the job by a Memphis transfer, Brady McBride, who from all fall camp reports has been tremendous and is an absolute playmaker, both in the pocket and if the play breaks down. Spavital's taken over play calling duties here, which, this guy's an offensive mind. He's been that his whole career. And I think that you'll see him be a little more aggressive offensively in his spread, not quite air raid, but almost air raid type. The offense that he has to work with has some returnees and some junior college transfers. They went the junior college transfer route heavy for this team. The wide receiving core is as deep as he's had. The running game, which was non-existent, could be average this year. But last year and the year before, guys, they were predicated mostly on defense because they just didn't have the offense to support it. And now I think the pendulum swings a little bit. The defense was ravaged, if you can say that about Texas State, right? But they do lose 8 starters off of that defensive team. And it wasn't great by the numbers to begin with. And there's a lot of talk about working in youth into this defense in this opening game. So I think that a quarterback like Shane Buechele for SMU will have his way against the Texas State defense here, which, Texas State had held up halfway decent defensively the past couple of years. I don't think they hold up here, but I do think that their offense shows up against SMU. Last year, this game goes 47-17 in favor of SMU, and I really think that the 47 points don't tell enough about how much damage SMU did to a better Texas State defense. I'd expect them to get 50-plus here. Reggie Roberson, the wide receiver who sat out the last 4 games or 5 games last year because he got injured, back and fully healthy this year. We don't worry too much about a coordinator change at SMU. The offense stays the same. It's Sonny Dykes Air Raid. If I were to choose one of these 2 games that you brought up, Drew, as a potential play for over the total, I think this one gets over the number. Like I said, I think SMU finds their way to 50, and the other side is much better offensively and could surprise a little bit, according to some insiders.
Ralph, we got the Mustangs and Bobcats Saturday, 3:30 p.m. Eastern. Probably going to be a lot of eyeballs on this game. How are you looking to bet it?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be using 21-point road favorites in week 1, but it's certainly the way I lean. And again, they're in my mix. I'm trying to find a note that I did with Minty yesterday. We do an Instagram post of the day? So I can tell you this, guys. Every day, Minty and I do a situation and angle of the day on Instagram. And for Monday, I went through and I looked at college football week 1 through 4 favorites and away favorites. I can tell you this. Favorites the last 5 years, 50.7%. Double-digit favorites weeks 1 through 4, 51.9%. 17-plus point favorites, 51.3%. And favorites of 24 or more, 50.8%. So just a plain favorite, basically nothing. But when you look at away favorites in college football the last 5 years, in weeks 1 through 4, away favorites are 54.7 and double-digit away favorites, 57.6%. So we already have a 58% angle. We have less of a home field edge. We have Texas State, who's only 4-13 as a home dog. We have an SMU team, which I agree with Robbie, that could have easily extended that 47 points they scored last year. They had a 639 to 242 yard edge. They had almost 400 yards rushing. They did not even try to throw the ball. They handed it off. They had 390 yards rushing. You add back Reggie Roberson. What did he do last year? Oh, yeah. Only 43 catches for 800 yards, 18.7 yards per carry. You have Shane Buechele, a 34-10 ratio. Now knowing the system, you have a Memphis back seven a Texas State back seven that lost all 3 linebackers and 2 DBs. So they're missing 5 of their back 7 people against this pass offense. For me, it's lay it or pass.
Minus 21.5 point favorite. Lay it or pass. Love the stats there, Ralph. 57.6% double-digit away favorites last 4 years in college football. Good stuff there, Ralph.
Weeks 1 through 4.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically why I did weeks 1 through 4 and broke it out, because you're looking at non-conference games for the most part, weeks 1 through 4.
Okay. All right. Good stuff there, Ralph. And we got 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN prime time. Looks like the at least best game until Monday night's action here, Ralph. We got Arkansas State and Memphis, AAC versus the Sun Belt. Highest total on the board, 71.5 here. And another big favorite, minus 18.5. I believe this is in the Liberty Bowl, Ralph. So what are you thinking for Arkansas State versus Memphis?
Well, I'm wishy-washy on this game, so I'm not going to come across with a strong opinion, but I do want to take a minute and just go over the scenarios and why this year is different than other years with an injury. If you have a quarterback injury, to me, it could be worth 5 or 6 points in college football, brain dead. If you have a running back, the most I probably would move a guy is maybe 1 point. So why is Kenneth Gainwell sitting out such a big deal for me? Well, he had 1,500 yards last year, averaged 6.3 yards per carry, caught 610 yards of passes, 12 yards per carry on 51 catches. I mean, he and Brady White were the offense of the Memphis Tigers. So when you have a team, you don't have spring practices or you have very few, you go through August thinking that you're going to have your potential All-American running back there. Your number 2s and number 3s and number 4s don't get the reps they need to start filling in. And then a week before your final game, you have this All-American type player who now is sitting out and has opted out the year. So there's a big difference there, not having him for the whole season or him missing the first few games after not prepping for him gone. The line adjusted maybe 1.5 points. These two are very familiar with each other. They're very close. And to me, even though you have 5 offensive starters and you do have Brady White, who is as good as anyone, 4,000 yards, 33-11 ratio, an All-American, a potential wide receiver in Coxie, I just think with the loss of them, I am not wanting to list double digits against this Arkansas State team.
All right, maybe leaning towards the dog there with the Arkansas State Red Wolves, I believe it is. And Robbie, Arkansas State really well. I mean, I guess you could pin them as one of, if not the best, program in the Sun Belt over the last 5, maybe 10 years. They have had some down seasons along the way, but heck, asking them to stay within, 18.5 points of Memphis could be an actually tall task. It is prime time on Saturday night. A lot of eyeballs on this one. Likely going to be a huge betting handle. What are you thinking here with Arkansas State and Memphis?
Well, the first thing I'll do is I'll echo the sentiments of Ralph and the value of Kenneth Gainwell at running back for Memphis, and the fact that he opts out the week of the game can't be helpful. Now they've got skill position players, but they're young in the backfield. They lost their top 2 rushers from last year. I mean, Gainwell obviously the most notable, but they lost their top 2. So you're going to have a new ball carrier here. Brady White to Coxie probably is unstoppable for Arkansas State, and the wide receiving talent here at Memphis just keeps replenishing itself, so you don't worry about that all that much. 3 offensive linemen returning, probably enough for Memphis to, be an offensive juggernaut. Just remember them against Penn State in the Cotton Bowl last year, guys, what they did to that team. Offensively, they'll be fine. Defensively, here's why I go a little bit back and forth. They have Mike McIntyre as their defensive coordinator now. And Mike McIntyre stepped in at Ole Miss and turned a garbage defense into a more than serviceable defense last year for Ole Miss when everybody thought Ole Miss was just going to get trampled defensively. That's not the way it worked out. We went through an awful lot of the numbers. The increase in defensive production under Mike McIntyre last year did a good job. Now he's going to come here to a team that, again, is not a good defensive team, especially against the run. They don't play it well. But he's going to come in. He's implementing his system. We'll see how it goes. Will it go right away? I'm not sure, but it did last year, right? He stepped in at Ole Miss last year. Who'd they play in week 1? They played Memphis. Final score was 15-10. So if he can hold down a Memphis offense with a lousy defense in week 1, then chances are it could repeat itself here against Arkansas State. All that being said, Arkansas State is loaded offensively. Because of injury last year, they had to go to 2 different quarterbacks. I think Logan Bonner is going to be the starter here, but they are absolutely loaded with talent on the offensive side of the football, which is a bit scary for me here. Ralph said wishy-washy, and I'll just use the same phrase, wishy-washy. I've gone back and forth here on this game. With Gainwell, I was going to go ahead and probably look at this game over. Now I'm not so sure. The line hardly moved with his loss, as Ralph mentioned, but it probably does take some of the running ability of Memphis away. I don't know if I could lay it here with them. I'd probably, at this point in time, I would probably look toward the underdog, Arkansas State, because they have the explosiveness. They have the ability, guys, to be down, even if they're down 24 points toward the end of the game. They're explosive enough to put up that backdoor touchdown that gets them the cover. That makes them scary. Right now, I'd lean Arkansas State.
All right, leaning Arkansas State there. We got one game left, guys. Reminder, it is $2 Tuesday at sportsmemo.com and wagertalk.com. Check out both sites there. This is the college football show every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, breaking down the card here with Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter and Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV. And Ralph, that special at WagerTalk and Sports Memo, $199, all access 30-day for the month of September, right?
It is. I mean, think about it. A lot of people buy one play for $40 on a 5% play. So we've never gone $199 at WagerTalk or Sports Memo for a 30-day. We said, what the heck? Let's get people involved and try to turn them into what really you should be doing anyway. I mean, I don't need to tell people how to buy plays, but one of the problems is this: people like jumping on a guy that's won 10 straight games, and then he loses one and they jump off of him. They're 0-1. And then he wins the next 2 and he goes 12-1. But so many people bought the one play that loss that, when you're on a handicapper that's a solid handicapper, you really want to jump on them after losing days, not after winning days. But the mentality is different when you're buying plays. And, from us betting, we know the difference and when to jump on people. So an all access allows you for basically the price of 2 weeks to try a service for 30 days and see how easy and convenient it is to just get the emails each day and know what the plays are and not have to worry about who I'm going to buy and hopefully have a great, successful 30 days of betting.
Yeah, so check it out both at Sports Memo and WagerTalk.com. It is all access $199 for the full month of September. And guys, you get MLB's going right now, NBA, NFL is going to start just right around the corner, and obviously college football kicking off in just a couple days with South Alabama and Southern Miss on Thursday night. So check out that great package there. All access for $199 at WagerTalk and sportsmemo.com and $2 Tuesday at both sites. So if you're watching live, good stuff there, guys. We got Monday night action, Monday night football here, live college football, and a good one. BYU and Navy, 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. We got BYU Cougars -1.5 versus the Navy Midshipmen here, 53 being the total. Ralph, come to you first, man. Monday night action, talking about, a lot of tickets written on these with college football kicking off on a lot of these games. I could see a pretty high handle. This one singled out college football is going to have a lot of tickets written on it, Ralph. And what side you thinking about being on?
I wanted to ask Robbie a question first.
Sure.
Because he talked about Army being plug and play with an option quarterback. Well, what happens when Navy, you have a quarterback like Keenan Reynolds or Malcolm Perry? How much different is that plug and play when you're not really plug and play, but you're replacing a dynamic player which changed your entire team?
It's why in that little spiel that I gave Ralph, I said the rare instance, and this is the rare instance, right? Malcolm Perry is certainly a guy. And when you're going to hand the ball over to a sophomore now, unlike Army, who's handing it over to a senior, and without, they didn't lose a quarterback of Malcolm Perry's status. These are difficult. It's why we don't blanket statement things, guys, right? How many times, Drew, have we been on together where I say, you know what, everything's individual. We can't generalize or blanket statement. And this is a perfect example. Malcolm Perry to this team was as dynamic as anybody. So, yeah, Ralph, to your point, it's not plug and play here, I don't think.
Yeah, this is one where my power ratings have Navy as a 4-point favorite. I talked about how I think BYU will struggle against the option. Again, BYU found out they were playing this game, I think, August 16th. So 14 days ago was the first time you realized you were going to face this opponent, let alone on the road, across country with the trip you had. But I am not going to play Navy. I will not have a play on this game. I know that because of, number one, having to replace, Malcolm Perry, who was dynamic as anyone in college football last year. You look at the experience. BYU was the most injured team in college football last year. When I did my college football guide, I had the number of players that started for each team. Each of the last 2 years, BYU has led the country. They've been so injured. They try so many new schemes when they aren't having a winning season and playing so many young kids. Well, now they're experienced. They're a top 15 team in terms of experience, and they face Navy, a bottom 15 in terms of experience. We know that BYU is going to have a conservative offense. They kept trying to figure out who was going to start. I think they didn't want to name Zach Wilson the starter. Well, they finally named him the starter. Zach Wilson threw for 2,382 yards, but he had that 11-9 ratio and just didn't seem to make the right throws at the right time and got happy feet. But Navy's a team that's going to blitz. Navy's a team that their cornerbacks get in trouble when you have wide receivers. BYU does have one very fast wide receiver. When you blitz a lot and you're playing man-to-man on the back end, Zach Wilson does have a little mobility. He didn't run a lot. He talked about how they should run more. I think he's going to scramble and have a lot of yards rushing to be able to move the chains for BYU. But first instinct, again, I would rather have a strong opinion on a Labor Day game that's everyone's going to watch. But I might still get to the window, Navy first quarter, expecting BYU to struggle against the option. I looked up in my mind, I was thinking they probably played Air Force, but they haven't played Air Force in years. So that's not even the case. They haven't prepped for the option. Sataki talked about never prepping for the option. Their DC talked about never prepping for the option. So you have these brand new schemes to try to take. So in my mind, BYU, much more experience. Navy, perhaps off to a quick start.
Good breakdown there, Ralph. And Robbie, Ralph's question about, the quarterback position and everything, in my opinion, it has a lot of kind of volatility to it because there's unknowns. We've seen, sophomores step up in college football and do a great job at the quarterback position. Now, we've also seen it work the other way, of course. So in my opinion, it becomes a little bit of a question mark here. And unless you're in practice seeing it happen, and even if so, the coach is watching them in practice, it's not 100% that it's going to happen out there in the game. So I get Ralph's point, kind of a watch and see, and likely not going to be on this one because it is a difficult handicap, Robbie.
There's no question, Drew. I mean, we so often talk about 99% of the time how passing games are timing and rhythm. But in this offense, it's the running game that's timing and rhythm. And, you get a young kid out there on a play where there's a pitch and the pitch goes awry. I mean, you didn't have to worry about that stuff with Malcolm Perry. Malcolm Perry could, take the ball, fake to the fullback, run down the line of scrimmage, make the right read, either turn it upfield or make the pitch to the back. It's questionable whether or not the young kid will handle this right off the bat. In theory, the play Ralph said he might get to first quarter, Navy, makes a lot of sense. If the kid doesn't show up to play right away, or if he's got the jitters, it could go down the drain. There's so many questions and variables that he pointed out there in this game that does make it difficult. I'll give another one. If this were Lavelle Edwards' offense for BYU, then I'd play BYU because it would, in all likelihood, shred the Navy linebacking core and secondary. I love Zach Wilson. Since the first time he took the field as a freshman, I thought this kid is just what BYU needs. There's been some injury. There's been some inconsistency. There's certainly been injury across the offensive line for this team, which has stagnated the running game, has stagnated the passing game for sure. But they've got that entire offensive line back this year to protect him. Now, Sataki's another one of those guys. He fires offensive coordinators because they can't score any points. Mm-hmm. And he talks a big game about wanting to get into the future here with offense. But he's one of those the Jim Harbaugh, one of these Les Miles. Their feet are just stuck in the mud. Kirby Smart. And I wonder if he'll turn this kid loose. If he would turn him loose, I'd have more faith. There's been a big move on BYU in this game, guys. I think the other side opened 3. And when we came on the air, I saw BYU 1. So certainly there's a lot of sentiment for the BYU side. If I knew that they were going to play more open offense, I think I would get there. But I just can't trust these defensive-minded, these Woody Hayes, 3 yards in a cloud of dust type head coaches that put restraints on their OCs. I just don't know yet. I'll have to see it to believe it with BYU. But I do think they're the better team, and I do think they have some advantages fundamentally.
Robbie, I got a question for you because, preparing for the option offense is kind of a handicap in itself. How much time have they had to prepare for it? How much time does the defensive coordinator, head coach, coaching tree have experience against defending the option, and how much success have they had in the past in defending the option? I value that as a big part of the handicap. And something interesting that Ralph and you both talked about was MTSU versus Army, and MTSU really only knowing about this game for about 2 weeks. So the excessive preparation for the option, not so much in that game. What about in this game with BYU that, heck, somewhat like the service academies, maybe not on that level, but a little bit more discipline in the program, I would say, going back, years with everything with the Mormons. But how much do you think is worked in terms of preparation defensively for this option? Did they have the time more so than MTSU?
Well, I would stick to where I thought you were going, Drew, about BYU being better equipped than MTSU. I just think that the quality of defender at BYU is more disciplined. But again, Ralph pointed out, Sataki's never had to prepare for an option. So to diagram a game plan as a head coach who's never faced an option in college football as a head coach or as a DC, it's a little bit different. So I think that MTSU's in a worse spot because they lose 6 of their front 7. And I could see missed assignments there, probably more missed assignments out of Middle Tennessee than I could see out of BYU. Ralph, I see the pen, so I'm going to turn it over quick.
I'm just going to put this in perspective. I'm going to go back to 2017. There's some guy coaching at Ohio State who's done a pretty good job. They're probably going to be a 45-point favorite to Army. And Urban Meyer said he spent 10 minutes of every practice in August going over the option against Army, who you're going to be a 40-point favorite from. So that puts it in perspective what a coach does to plan for the option when they know they're going to play them. So imagine taking all that time and prep work away, and this is Ohio State against Army, not basically a pick'em game that you're playing on the road.
And I'll second that with a game, and I can't give you the year, but Army went to Oklahoma, Ralph, and scared the daylights out of Oklahoma within the last 4 years.
OT, or did they were up 31-24, I think, and then it was 31-31, and then Oklahoma won.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to your point, these are powerhouse Power 5 programs. So when you don't have the experience defending it, Drew, to your point, it is a hindrance. I would think that BYU is just somewhat personnel-wise in a better situation than MTSU is at this point in time. Nobody wants to face this team or an option team first week of the year. Who the heck wants to open the season with, Army, Navy, Air Force? Nobody. And it does take a while to get adjusted. So we'll see. BYU coming from behind. I'll say this. If the Navy quarterback comes out and plays well right out of the chute, BYU coming from behind, hard to trust. Offensively, I have to really see what they're going to do on the offensive side of the football in this game to get some kind of, feel for the rest of the season with BYU.
I really think this, while I said I won't have a play on it, I think it really could be a great live betting situation. If Navy falls behind, they're not the team to come from behind with the new quarterback without Malcolm Perry, again. So if BYU does jump out, I may be on that, on that BYU train. And normally you think when the team jumps out, you want to bet the other team because you're getting value. In this case, if the team jumps out, I may actually bet on them laying more points because they're in a better situation.
Ralph, and I'll second that. That's actually something I've come up to in the last couple of years here, handicapping college football, and had some success in game on option teams, primarily Armies, Navies, Air Forces of the world. It's something in option attack in high school football. I know that actually we have some guys out there that watch the show are high school football coaches, and I've DM'd with them on Twitter because it's a fascinating in-game live here, Robbie and Ralph, in terms of stopping the option is not something normally you figure out during the game. If you're not stopping it, in the first quarter, in the second quarter, a lot of times you don't figure it out. It's something you're stopping it and you stop it the whole game, or you're not stopping it and it kind of runs away from you. So that's something I've learned in-game live with college football betting to kind of second what you're saying there, Ralph.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a unique situation, obviously, depending how much you can throw it when you're the option, when you're behind. If you can stack the box against the option, you're at an edge. Last year, Navy the starting quarterback completed 55% of the passes. That's high for them. A lot of times they're in the 40s. So that's what made Navy, an 11-2 team last year, having the rush attack and the ability to throw the ball. They passed for 1,000 yards and to do that. So again, I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt. I am not going to assume that people that have COVID are going to be a negative team because you have less people behind you. I'm not going to assume teams are going to wear out because they didn't get the workouts they did in the summer. It really is. I'm going to handicap the same way, make small adjustments, and learn about what's happened. The worst thing to do is go all in because of something you think's going to happen because of COVID week 1. There's only 5 games. The astute handicapper is going to learn from those games and adjust their bets accordingly as they go, making bigger bets when they feel more comfortable with what they're doing. There's nothing wrong with betting less week 1, especially in a situation like this when we're not sure what's going to happen. I'm going to bring this, that this really doesn't have anything to do with COVID, but it's a preconceived notion. Okay. I spent 15 years at Phil Steele Publications, and back in the 90s and early 2000s, if you had a freshman quarterback, he sucked. If you were playing a true freshman quarterback, he was a bet against. Well, guess what? Just like NBA players now can go from high school to the NBA, you now have these passing camps. You have these Nike camps. You're a junior in high school and you're already throwing in front of pros. You're learning how to adjust. Well, last year, 5 true freshmen started week 1. Guess what? Those 5 true freshmen went 5-0 ATS last year. Nix for Auburn beat Oregon. Brockmeyer from Boise State went to Florida State and beat them on the road, crushed them on the road. So again, don't fall into preconceived notions. I, as a handicapper for 35 years, I found myself doing it last year, betting 3 of those true freshmen on the road and getting my teeth kicked in week number 1 because of that.
No, I like the stats, Ralph. Good stuff there with the true freshman, man. And I mean, are you looking to kind of piggyback off of that this year? Because that might be something that, isn't out in the mainstream in terms of the odds makers really jumping on that with just the 5-0 ATS. That's not really out there that a lot of people know that.
Well, again, most true freshmen that start at quarterback for a Division I team probably came in for the spring camp. So you're losing those practices already. So right now, I do have circled. I have a list that I keep for myself. The teams with a new OC, the teams with a new head coach, new OC, new DC, freshman quarterback, or inexperienced quarterback. And I'll just see how they play out the first week or two and then adjust my sheets accordingly.
Good stuff, Ralph, man. Awesome information. And Robbie at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Anything you want to throw out here in conclusion before we shut this down?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Ralph, because I don't, off the top of my head, Sam Howell was one of those true freshman quarterbacks, yes or not?
Yeah, for North Carolina.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're a special breed, Drew, that comes through. And the quarterbacks we're rattling off here as true freshmen are a special breed. They're all not that. Yeah, real quick, something I missed when we went over the Southern Mississippi game for guys who play first half, second half. I don't know that it's going to apply, but guys do like numbers. And while Ralph's the king of SDQL, I like to drop something into that nature from time to time. Southern Miss, last 10 games of the year last year in the second half, 10-0 to the under. Again, I don't know that that'll apply to this year, but 10-0 under last year from Southern Miss. And SMU, one thing I missed real quick with Shane Buechele, he's got his entire offensive line back. Boy, that's going to be a dangerous thing for opposing defenses to have him with a full offensive line back in front of him. So glad to talk college football with you guys. Glad we got through these 5 games. And boy, look forward to some winners this year.
Absolutely, Robbie. And Ralph at Cal Sports at Cal Sports LV on Twitter, guys. Great follow there. Ralph, anything you wanted to throw out in conclusion before we shut this down?
Nope. I'm excited to watch college football. It doesn't matter how long you've been handicapping. This is a unique season. So nothing you did, you can't be positive. Nothing you've done in the past has worked with the practice schedules, with the uncertainties, with, the differentness of the physicalness of what they could do. So I'm taking everything with a grain of salt. I'm suggesting to my customers to lower a unit or two the first couple. And, like I always say, you always are paying 10% juice. So I would much rather leave a winner off my card than put a loser on. Because if I'm splitting those 1-and-1s, being a little more conservative, you're saving 10% every time you do that.
Oh yeah, watch the volume, guys, especially early in the season. I've never really been a huge week 1 bettor as it is, Ralph, because like we talked about, I mean, there's a lot of unknowns when these sophomores, freshmen come in. Some of them make it, but like we've talked about, but some of them don't. It's not 100% thing. So it's good to get kind of a little look at them week 0 and then maybe bet them next week if you're liking what you're seeing, because we get that change in there that the odds makers might be a little bit slow. But for Ralph Michaels, Rob Veno, I am Drew Martin. Guys, it's been a fun show. Remember, $2 Tuesday all day today, sportsmemo.com, wagertalk.com, and the $199 all access special at both sites as well. So for Ralph, Rob, I am Drew. Guys, next Tuesday, same time slot, and likely a little bit later in the week on Thursday, college football, every game on the board with mid-major Matt breaking down the games as well. So, guys, be safe. Best of luck with your